Marcus knew something was wrong the moment Elena's laughter stopped sounding like music. It had happened gradually, like the slow dying of a candle's flame, each flicker weaker than the last. 10 years of marriage had built a life of routine and warmth, filled with shared jokes, silent understandings, and late-night talks. But lately, her eyes seemed distant. Her phone never left her side, and her kisses, when they came, felt like they were meant for someone else. That morning, she handed him her keys without thinking. "Can you take my car in? The brakes are squeaking again." She was in the middle of blow-drying her hair, her tone breezy, distracted. Marcus nodded, said nothing. Her voice used to carry weight. Now it just filled the silence. At the garage, while waiting for the mechanic, he opened the glove box, looking for the insurance papers. Instead, he found something else. A phone, not her regular one. This was different. Older. No case, no fingerprint lock. His pulse quickened. He glanced around, then thumbed it awake. The truth came in fragments. "Miss you already. I'll pick you up around 10, same spot. Don't worry. Marcus will never leave." There were pictures too. Candids of hotel beds, dimly lit dinners, mirror selfies in lingerie he'd never seen her wear. Her last message hung in the air like smoke from a slow-burning fire. "Don't worry, Marcus will never leave." He stared at the screen, something hollow opening in his chest. Not anger, not yet, just stillness, the kind that comes right before the sky splits open. He didn't throw the phone, didn't call her, didn't cry. He simply copied everything, quietly, methodically, as if preserving evidence for a crime scene he wasn't yet ready to report. When he came home, Elena greeted him with a distracted kiss and a question about dinner. He kissed her cheek and said he'd already eaten. She didn't notice anything different. But something inside Marcus had shifted. That night, as Elena scrolled through her usual world of filters and facades, Marcus sat alone in his study, opening a fresh page in his notebook. "Letter 47, he titled it. "You looked at me tonight and didn't see I was already gone." Marcus didn't change overnight, but he stopped trying. No more reaching across the bed to hold her at night. No more pausing his day to call and ask how hers was going. He didn't pull away with cruelty. That wasn't his way. Instead, he became a mirror, showing Elena only what she offered him. Empty glances, polite nods, transactional affection. The burner phone remained hidden, its screen now burned into his memory. Every message, every image etched behind his eyelids. But Marcus never confronted her. Instead, he became a witness to his own unraveling marriage, moving through the days like a man studying the ruins of a house he once called home. He started watching her the way a novelist watches a character take shape, detached, curious, resigned. He noticed the way she took longer showers on nights she claimed to be exhausted, the soft smile she wore after checking her phone and stepping outside for some air, the carefully curated explanations, the low-grade panic in her eyes when she realized he wasn't reacting. She was expecting a scene, but Marcus gave her none. At work, he became quieter. He'd sit at his desk staring at spreadsheets, barely blinking, running numbers while his mind drifted. He kept writing, every night. His unsent letters were stacking up now, each one bleeding with grief, confusion, and a strange, unfamiliar calm. Writing was how he bled without leaving a mess. One morning, while Elena was in the shower, he opened her closet and counted how many outfits were gone. He noticed new shoes, heels he'd never seen her wear, and when she emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, freshly made up for a work lunch, he didn't ask questions, just smiled slightly and told her to enjoy herself. She hesitated at the door, eyes lingering on him like she was searching for a signal, but Marcus had grown unreadable, and that unnerved her far more than any accusation would have. The next day, Marcus booked a week at a quiet hotel downtown. Nothing fancy, just a clean place with soft sheets and peace. That same afternoon, he met with a lawyer, not to initiate anything yet, but to understand what life might look like after her. He asked measured questions, took notes. For once, the future didn't terrify him. At home, he began the slow, deliberate process of preparing his exit. He removed the wedding photo from their bedroom wall and tucked it into a drawer. He backed up family photos, sorted his accounts, and placed a hold on joint transactions. He didn't leave clues, but if she was paying attention, she might have felt the chill creeping into the corners of their shared life. One evening, Elena walked into the kitchen and found Marcus drying dishes. He looked peaceful, focused. "You're quiet lately," she said lightly, her tone trying to tease but missing the mark. Marcus didn't look up, just thinking. About what? He turned off the faucet and faced her. About how silence can say more than words ever could. Elena laughed. Too loud, too forced, and poured herself a glass of wine. She didn't ask anything else. That night, Marcus stayed up after she went to bed. At the dining table, he placed two things side by side, the burner phone and a letter sealed in a plain white envelope. In it, he hadn't asked her why. He hadn't begged for closure. He had simply written, "You played with the pieces of my heart like a game, but even games end." Then he went upstairs, packed his bag, and kissed his sleeping wife's forehead one last time. She didn't stir. The morning Marcus left, the world outside was unusually still. Pale light filtered through the blinds as he zipped the last corner of his suitcase. The silence in the house wasn't oppressive anymore. It was tranquil, like the stillness before a storm passes and the air feels newly washed. He paused for a moment in the doorway of their bedroom, taking one final look. The scent of her perfume still lingered faintly in the room. Her silk robe was slung over the chair like always, as if nothing in their life had changed. And maybe for her, nothing had. But for Marcus, something fundamental had cracked, and from the fragments, a quiet resolve had been born. He didn't slam any doors. He didn't leave angry voicemail messages or demand explanations. There was no confrontation, no scene. He simply carried his bag downstairs, set the burner phone and the envelope on the kitchen table, and walked out. The sound of the front door closing behind him felt like a book finally shutting after too many unread chapters. The drive to the hotel was short, but his thoughts ran long. He didn't feel the satisfaction that revenge stories promised. There was no triumphant music playing in his head. Instead, there was a tired sort of peace, the kind that arrives only after you've cried every tear you had and finally decided to stop swimming against the current. At the hotel, Marcus checked in under his full name. No secrecy, no falsehoods. He didn't feel like hiding, he just needed space that didn't carry her echoes in its walls. The room was modest but warm. He set his bag down, took off his coat, and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in a long time, no one was expecting him to play a role. No husband mask, no forced smile, no nodding through lies. He opened his notebook and began a new letter. This one, unlike the others, was for himself. You kept waiting for her to come home to you, but she never really left the other place. The truth is, she had two lives, and you were just the quiet one. The words came slowly, then in a rush, like blood returning to a numb limb. Later that day, he walked to a nearby park and sat by the water. He watched people go about their lives, joggers, parents pushing strollers, elderly couples moving in gentle tandem. It was a stark contrast to the emotional storm he'd been surviving in silence. None of them knew what he was leaving behind, but they reminded him that the world was still spinning and he could choose to rejoin it on his own terms. Back at the hotel, Marcus lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. He thought about the man he had been. Devoted, forgiving, endlessly patient. He wondered if that version of him had died the moment he read the words, "Don't worry, Marcus will never leave." No, that man hadn't died. He had grown tired of being someone else's certainty while living in doubt. By nightfall, his phone buzzed once. A single message from Elena. "Where are you? I'm home. Marcus? This isn't funny." He didn't respond. He turned the phone face down and reached for the remote, but didn't turn on the TV. Instead, he sat in the silence, a silence he had chosen. He had always believed that love meant fighting, fixing, forgiving, but now he understood something else. Sometimes love meant walking away, not in anger, but in quiet self-respect. Marcus exhaled deeply and closed his eyes. He wasn't lost. He was free. Elena came home expecting the usual. Marcus in the living room with his laptop, maybe a warm meal waiting on the stove, the soft hum of jazz drifting through the walls. What she found instead was silence, dense and unfamiliar, like someone had vacuumed the soul out of the house. "Marcus?" she called out as her heels clicked against the hardwood floor. No answer. The light in the kitchen was still on. A plate rested in the sink, and beside it on the counter was her burner phone, face down as if discarded like a used napkin. Next to it lay a single white envelope, her name written in his familiar handwriting. Her breath caught. At first, she laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of twisted joke. But the moment her fingers touched the paper, her gut twisted. She hadn't even opened it yet, but the weight of it, the stillness in the room, the absence of him, was louder than any words inside. She sat down slowly at the table, a tremor in her hands, and unfolded the letter. I once promised you forever. I meant it, but I've learned that promises mean nothing when only one of us is showing up to keep them. You wanted stability, and you found it in me. You wanted thrill, and you chased it elsewhere. You thought I wouldn't leave, but that's only because I hadn't. She read it twice, the second time slower. The edges of the letter curled slightly in her grip, her eyes scanning for hope, for a loophole, a sign that he was bluffing. But it was all truth, and it was all final. She rushed upstairs, checked the closet, half empty. His suitcase was gone, the drawer where he kept his socks, empty, his cologne, gone. The realization dropped on her like cold rain. He hadn't just walked out. He had planned this. Elena stood in the middle of their bedroom and looked around as if seeing it for the first time. Every item now held weight. The framed wedding photo on the dresser, the throw blanket they once fought over, the dent in the mattress where his body used to rest. She picked up her phone, her real one this time, and dialed him, straight to voicemail. Her hands moved without thinking as she opened her messages and typed, "Please come home, we can fix this." No reply. She tried again, longer this time, trying to sound composed but not too composed, vulnerable but not desperate. She didn't know the right combination anymore. I never meant for this to go so far. You don't understand. It was never about love. It was just something I did to feel alive. But I love you. Please. Please answer. Still nothing. She began to panic. She called his work. He'd taken personal leave. She called his sister. Voicemail. His best friend. Curt and distant. He's fine. Let him be. It was the first time in years Elena had truly been alone in that house. The silence now mocked her. She wandered from room to room as if searching for him in shadows, in memories. She found herself back at the table, staring at the burner phone. Her false freedom. That tiny device had given her the illusion of choice, of escape, but now it stared back at her like an artifact of her own undoing. She scrolled through the messages. Tyler's name still glowed on the screen. His flirty texts, his jokes, the pictures they had exchanged. It all looked so shallow now, so childish. There was no love there, just escapism. And now the one man who had truly loved her had chosen to walk away, quietly, with dignity. She typed one last message. "I was wrong. You were everything." A moment later, her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. It was short, icy, final. "You had both, now you have none." The hotel room was dim, the curtains drawn against a world that no longer required his performance. Marcus sat cross-legged on the edge of the bed, the city humming faintly beyond the glass. His phone buzzed again. Elena. He didn't flinch. He didn't reach for it. Instead, he looked down at the letter he had written to himself earlier, now resting on the desk like a private monument. This one was different. No longer a letter to her, or a futile scream into a void. It was a quiet acknowledgement of survival. He picked up his phone only to do one thing: delete her number. A clean break. No dramatic blocking, no final scathing text, just erasure. A small gesture with irreversible consequences. Moments later, a new message popped up. "Please come home." He stared at the words, not with anger, but with a sad clarity. The same kind of clarity you feel when you finally stop looking back at a house that's already burned to the ground. He typed slowly, purposefully. "You had both. Now you have none." Then, without hesitation, he powered down the phone and set it aside. Outside, the light of early evening filtered between buildings, casting long shadows on the pavement below. Somewhere traffic moved, somewhere laughter spilled from cafe doors. Life went on, unburdened by betrayal. Marcus walked over to the window and pulled the curtain back just slightly, enough to watch the world turn. He wasn't bitter, he wasn't broken, he was something better. Behind him, the hotel room remained still. A suitcase zipped shut, a notebook closed. A man no longer tethered to a life built on borrowed time. And if someone were to narrate his thoughts at that moment, they might have said this: "She thought I'd fight for her. I chose to fight for myself instead." Fade to black.